Good evening and welcome to Equine Essentials. I'm your host, Gray Parks, equine nutritionist for ProTrition Feed, here in a slightly different setting this evening to talk to you about horse pasture management. Why pasture management? Well, pasture is the best, most natural, and most cost-effective way to feed your horse. It may seem expensive to buy and maintain land, but it's still less expensive pound for pound of nutrition for your horse than hay or grain. Now, when we talk about horse pasture management, there are two ways we can approach managing our pastures. One is to maximize forage production, which is what most horse owners want to do. That minimizes the amount of hay that you need to purchase to feed your animals. However, for some situations and some horses, such as mine, that are a little bit on the easy keeping side, we have to find a happy medium between improving pasture conditions and not creating so much food that our horses become overweight. Now, this time of year, we're filming this in April, is a good time to assess your pasture and have a plan for the year. We have just warmed up now and things are starting to turn green and your grass is growing. A lot of people might think today, in middle of April, oh, I should probably go out and spray my weeds. Unfortunately, you've actually missed the boat a little bit on that. The best time to spray your pasture for weeds is when the weeds and the grasses first start coming out in the early spring. So by the time you actually see weeds in your pasture, particularly the yellow buttercups we're also used to, it's actually too late to effectively kill them and make a big difference for the next season. But now is a good time to assess how many weeds you have so you can make a plan for a fall or early spring next year killing of your weeds. It is a great time to go out and walk your pasture, however. Assess how much of your ground is covered versus how much of it is bare, and whether you might even think about seeding in the fall. You also want to look and check your fences, make sure there hasn't been any damage over the winter months, especially if your horses have been off the pasture for the winter. You can fertilize your pasture this time of year and improve the production of what grasses you do have. Again, if you have very easy keeping horses, that may not be the way you want to go. But for harder keepers or heavier uses, then a fertilizing condition is a very good thing to do. Before you fertilize, however, it's important to pull a soil test from your pasture so you know specifically which nutrients you're putting onto that soil are the ones your pasture is actually going to need and utilize. Your local co-op can help you with submitting and interpreting your soil sample results. Once your pasture is growing well, if you really want to fine-tune your horse's diet, you can actually sample the pasture itself for nutritional value. Your ProTrition sales specialist or someone like me can help you to submit a sample of your pasture if you really want to fine-tune the mineral nutrition in particular of your horse's diet. One thing that might come up in your soil test is lime. A lot of our soils here in Tennessee are very acidic. Acidic soils tend to be more friendly towards weeds than they are towards grasses. So liming is a very cost-effective way that you can cut down on weeds, improve your pasture health, and make a big difference. And there's really no bad time of year to lime your pasture, though most prefer to do it in the winter. The most important thing you can do for your pasture's health is to protect it from overgrazing. In Tennessee, the general rule of thumb is that we would like to see approximately 1.5 to 2 acres of pasture per average-sized horse. That will provide forage for most of the growing year and minimize damage. Another way to do that, especially if you have a smaller property, is through rotational grazing, where your horses are moved from pasture to pasture. In an ideal rotational grazing system, you want to turn your horses onto the pasture when the average height of the grass is about 8 inches and take them off once the grass has been grazed down to about 4 inches. If your horses graze the pasture below 4 inches, that not only damages the plant health, but also exposes your horse to a higher number of internal parasites. So rotational grazing can protect your pasture and your horse's health both. I hope that we've given you some really important and useful pasture management tips here tonight on this episode of Equine Essentials. If you have any questions, reach out to your local store or to me, and we'll be happy to help you. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Equine Essentials. I hope to see you all again next month.